Well, it's a political scandal in Philadelphia now being compared to the same kind of scheme depicted in the film American Hustle.
I'm placing $75,000 into this briefcase for Mayor Carmine Polito to procure casino license and building permits for Atlantic City.
But this is no movie. 4 state lawmakers allegedly caught on tape accepting bribes in exchange for voting no on Pennsylvania's voter ID laws.
It's a pretty big scandal. So how come the investigation was dismissed, and why was it swept under the rug by the Democratic Attorney General, of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania? Here now, columnist and Fox News contributor, DeRoy Murdock. DeRoy, welcome.
Tucker, good to see you.
This is it's almost hard to believe this is real. So these 4 lawmakers were caught up in a sting that has been going on for a number of years, since 2010. Hundreds of hours of audio and videotape. In some cases, the legislators called and asked to take bribes.
That's right.
I mean, totally busted, dead to rights. Yep. And they're not being prosecuted because it's racist somehow?
It's totally outrageous. I mean, we live in a country, as we saw earlier on the show, where the federal government went after this this high school for having benches and bleachers that the federal government didn't like.
Right.
And yet there's no prosecution of these people who are accused of taking cash money to vote against voter ID legislation. Apparently the offer was made to Republican and Democrat legislatures. The only ones who actually took the money were the Democrats. And Kathleen Kane, the Democratic Attorney General of Pennsylvania, basically dropped the case. She actually asked for the files back from the federal authorities and then dropped the case and said, well, we're not going to prosecute this because they're black, and if we pursued it, well, I guess that would be racist.
Yeah, it had racial undertones, she
yes,
said. You know, in that clip that we just showed of Bradley Cooper, it was over $70,000. These people sold out pretty cheap, didn't they? I mean, as little as $1,500 and one lawmaker even a $2,000 Tiffany bracelet. What does that say to you? It's
incredible. You'd think, look, I'm against bribery, but if you're going to engage in bribery, at least you think these people would say, all right, you want my vote, that's going to be $50,000. These people sell out incredibly cheaply. I mean, it's really astonishing, not just the corruption, but sort of the pettiness of the corruption.
I mean, there's no defending it. I always like Duke Cunningham, the war hero, Republican congressman from California. He was a crook.
Absolutely.
He got busted. He went to jail. I was glad he did. I think most people were.
Absolutely.
The fact that the Democrats would defend these people, and where are the feds? Where's the Justice Department? Why doesn't the Obama administration prosecute?
They should. I mean, they're federal bribery laws. I mean, if you're voting on voter ID, this obviously has an effect on federal elections. The Department of Justice ought to pursue this. But, they dropped the case against the Black Panthers in Philadelphia on Election Day 2008. They were standing in front of the polls, intimidating voters on a racial basis. And, in fact, they had defaulted that case. They're ready to be convicted. And Eric Holder came in. One of the first things they did was drop that case. On the IRS, we don't see any prosecution. So there are a lot of things where we see the federal government now under Obama enforce some laws and completely slough off others. And I think this is another example of that.
I mean, it is a big deal. And I want to get your take on how do you think the mainstream media is going to be covering this? I mean, we saw the scandal, the senator in California, the Charlotte mayor accepting bribes allegedly. And we heard the mainstream media saying these things were outrageous, but we didn't hear what party they were involved in.
Funny how they missed that detail, huh? Yeah, I think the mainstream media will pay as much attention to this as they are a lot of other aspects of Obamacare. I heard NBC News spent 3-4 minutes this year covering the failures of Obamacare. Really astonishing. I mean, this is a big story. It's an interesting story. They ought to be pursuing it. I think all of us, the media, should be demanding issuing freedom of information lawsuits to get those videotapes and actually see these people on tape taking money. If that's
I don't know what's more
did.
upsetting, one of these sort of low-rent lawmakers taking a $2,000 Tiffany bracelet, or the Attorney General of the state, the chief law enforcement officer, not saying, she hasn't said, I'm not prosecuting because I think they're innocent. She's saying, I'm not prosecuting because it's, politically inconvenient for me.
Yeah, I mean, if the idea is if you're black, you don't get prosecuted. I'm going to leave Fox News and go to Pennsylvania and pursue a career in bank robbery. I won't be prosecuted.
I hope you will run for office.
It would be very lucrative.
I would vote for you. DeRoy Murdock, thanks for joining us,
See you guys.
as always.